about the Romanian judicial system. Let's talk about the judicial systems of the world. I've recently seen some very scary decisions in America and England, in these Western democratic nations. You see people doing 20 years for attending peaceful protests. So you start to sit and wonder when you're in these situations, what is a trial? What is a judge? What is this? These are just people in a room.
Which peaceful protest are you talking about?
There's been a few. And
who's got 20 years for attending a peaceful protest?
I don't want to say names. I saw it somewhere on Twitter. Somebody attended, I think it was a pro-Trump protest, and they ended up getting 20 years.
Well, if you're talking about the January 6th riots, they were riots where people died.
Well, it's interesting.
They're not peaceful protests.
Okay, pause right there. So if you guys don't know, Andrew Tate is referring to, when he says people that got in prison for 20 years, he's referring to this individual right here, former Proud Boys leader Enrique Trio, gets record years, 22 years in prison for the January 6th protest riots, whatever you want to call them. He was simply on the property. Now, mind you, this guy did not burn down anything. He didn't murder anybody. When Piers Morgan's is going to sit there and say, well, people died on January 6th. There was one person that died that day, which was Ashley Babbitt, a Trump supporter that got shot by Capitol Police. And guess what? That Capitol policeman didn't serve a damn day in prison for that death. When you have this guy right here, who they want to throw in all of these indictments that he was planning, and he was one of the leaders of the people that were going on there and saying their feelings towards the election of what happened, regardless of what you think. This guy is now currently serving 22 years in prison. That's what Andrew Tate is referring to. And he wasn't the only one. We had several other ones like Owen Schroyer of InfoWars that recently got thrown in prison for 2 months for simply being present during that day. Absolutely ridiculous that Piers Morgan is going to sit there and totally ignore these while simultaneously saying that people died on January 6th and XYZ. Dude.
Because the world is actually very nuanced, and what I tried.
Well, that wasn't nuanced. That was a huge mob of
what
people
I tried to do,
attacking the U.S. Capitol.
Well, what I tried to do is I try to look at a broad spectrum of events, and I try to put things into a nuanced view, and I don't try and take a instant black or white point of view on things. And the fact that BLM were rioting and destroying the entire nation for months and during that exact week.
Yeah, exactly.
And then some other people got together with a opposing political view and are facing serious prison time for doing less damage than BLM did. I find that kind of scary because
people did die.
Well, in a democratic nation, we should all be the same under the law.
But Andrew, just to be clear, on January the 6th, people died.
People died during BLM.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
There are certainly inconsistencies in the way groups of people have been policed.
I see how he changes the subject there.
About the BLM marches to the pro-Palestinian marches and so on, right? There's a lot of inconsistency.
Well, then we agree.
There's a lot of inconsistency in global policing, I think. I think that's a perfectly valid thing to say. But the idea that someone's got 20 years for being in a peaceful march is not true. The ones who've got the lengthy prison sentences have been held accountable for serious crimes.
I'm not even condoning January 6th.
And going back to what Andrew said, Andrew Tate is completely right about the BLM riots. Literally had more deaths in 6 months of rioting, which is not hard to believe, 6 months, 7 months or so of rioting, and 4 hours of rioting on January 6th led to more deaths. Like, no, that's not even debatable, all right? Check this out right here. A quick Google search right here. According to Forbes, as of June 8th, 2020, at least 19 people died during the protests, okay? You have multiple articles about this. At least 25 Americans were killed during protests. The numbers vary, but it's around 25 to 30 people passing away during those George Floyd instances. 14 days of protest, 19 dead, as you guys can see there. I mean, and Piers Morgan wants to ignore the fact that people passed away during BLM and wants to convince Andrew Tate that the protests of January 6th, well, people died on there, you know, and then he wants to switch subject that, oh, the policemen, that's why. We had David Dorn dying during the George Floyd riots, all right? We have multiple people. This man right here, Chris Betzley, he's another one, black man. Another young lady, 22 years old, passed away during that time. Patrick Underwood. The list goes on. We have multiple people that passed away during that time right here. George Gomez, a Hispanic such as myself. And yet they want to sit there and say that the Proud Boys leader, right, former Proud Boys leader, who was simply on the property of the Capitol, gets arrested, gets thrown in 22 years of prison. And like I said, the media, which Piers Morgan is a part of, wants to convince you of the ridiculousness of how they govern and how they look at things. We had articles like this. Look right here. Latino white supremacists are a reality across the country. Now, mind you, if you guys don't know, I'm Hispanic, I'm Latino. So it's funny to me because we're always labeled as Latinos, labeled as brown. We're brown skinned, right? We're brown skinned when it's convenient, but when it's not convenient, like Enrique over here, who's the Proud Boys leader, who's been labeled, Proud Boys have been labeled a white supremacist group. Now all of a sudden, Latino white supremacy is a thing. Every day we're brown, but when it suits the narrative, now we're a bunch of white supremacists. That's how the media rolls. That's exactly how it is. And Piers Morgan, of course, knows this. He's just being completely dishonest.
I don't even know the ins and outs of January 6th. I wasn't there. I'm not saying it should have happened. What I'm saying is exactly what you have said. There seems to be some massive inconsistencies in global policing now. So when you end up in a position where you're speaking against the system, as I do, and you understand that there are massive inconsistencies in policing globally, you start to sit down and seriously wonder if you stand a fair chance of a fair trial in any country on earth. I actually have to give massive credit to the Romanian judicial system because a judge one day sat down and said, why are these boys in jail, and let us go. I don't know if I would have had a fair shot like that in many other nations.
When you were released from jail after about 3 months, what was that feeling like?
So there you go. We had Piers Morgan push back on Andrew Tate about the protests here. And I'm gonna say this, man. Andrew should have went harder when it came to that, because mind you, Andrew's gonna sit here in this interview and talk about how he was wrongfully in prison for something he didn't do, right? While simultaneously we know that the people on that day on J6 were in prison for 20 years plus for simply trespassing on a United States government property, okay? Completely out of nowhere. Alex Jones is another man that's being targeted, that's friends with Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, and I get it, Andrew Tate is not an American first guy. There is a second interview where Piers Morgan and Andrew go head to head on the Palestine and Israel conflict, okay? It is very clear to me that Andrew Tate is Palestine first. By every means necessary, he is a Palestine first guy. It just baffles me that he's going to sit there and not push back on what happened that day and not even bring up the names. He's going to call it just some kind of Trump protest, something like that. I don't remember exactly. When Piers Morgan brings up it's J6, yeah, now all of a sudden his memory comes back to him. I mean, and I get it. He's Palestine first. It's just like anything else. But at the end of the day, these people are being imprisoned, and Andrew Tate refuses to go hard on this particular subject, not backing up the people that were wrongfully imprisoned and have the same exact story as Andrew Tate, being accused of something they didn't do, and they're being locked up and they want to throw away the key. The only reason Jacob Chansley came out of prison was only because Tucker Carlson revealed footage of him not doing anything violent, anything out of the ordinary, nothing that was against the law, just simply walking around, doing a tour guide all around the Capitol, not doing anything wrong. But yet he was the poster child. He was the face of all of the J6 rioters that were thrown in prison and thrown away the key. Similar to Andrew Tate, but Andrew Tate refuses to go hard on that. He should have done that. He refused to that. But at the end of the day, Andrew Tate is not America first. He is Palestine first. And he made that clear in this interview, which we will be breaking down later on this. So guys, if you like this video, if you like this take, this was the conversation between Piers Morgan and Andrew Tate on the Trump protests, or whatever you want to call them, and their take on that. I found it very interesting because Piers Morgan is completely lying about the situation and the BLM rights, etc. And yeah, guys, subscribe to the channel, comment down below all your thoughts, and like the video. It goes a long way to help us get into the algorithm. And yeah, subscribe to the channel because we're going to have more videos breaking down this clash between Andrew Tate and Piers Morgan. That's all I got for you guys today. Like, subscribe, comment down below. And I'm your host, Jake Varr. This has been Project VO Pod 2024. Peace.